The Maple Leafs arrive in Sweden. Meanwhile, back in Toronto, rumors swirling about a potential interest with Patrick Kane. We'll get into all of that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now when new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's right, $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. What's up, Dave? How you doing this week? It's a light week in the game schedule, but there still seems to be a lot of news circulating with the Leafs, isn't there?
Always. Like you can't have a week where the Leafs are just totally out of the news cycle. Just not possible.
It doesn't happen. You know, with the latest, obviously, the report of the Maple Leafs chatting with one Patrick Kane, apparently in the last day or so. So we'll touch on that in a few moments here. But you know, the Leafs officially off to Sweden. They've arrived and they're there for the weekend games, the global series for the NHL, and you know, Toronto. A big Swedish lineage over the course of their, you know, existence. It dates back to Borje Salming, obviously. Matt Sundin was such a staple and one of the biggest players to ever come out of Sweden, obviously. And even to today, right? You've got Liljegren there, you've got Nylander, you've got now you've brought in John Klingberg, Lagesson, Pontus Holmberg is a native of Sweden. So a very large Swedish contingent with the Maple Leafs. And you know, it's going to be pretty cool. And I know that they're super excited to be playing in front of, you know, their home crowd and home fans. I think I saw Nylander has like 100 tickets or something that he had to buy for friends and family for this weekend. Like it's going to be cool. It's going to be great for those guys. And, you know, should be a couple of solid games as well against Detroit and Minnesota.
Yeah, the only thing that's unfortunate with all this is Timothy Liljegren not able to enjoy this. Like that was the one that I was like, it's the timing of that. But yeah, no, it's it just being there, like you hearing Nylander and talk about how, you know, his family hasn't seen him play an NHL game live. His grandmother, they asked him, "How old's your grandmother?" He's like, "I don't know, she's old." Like, yeesh, Willie. Trying to remember the grandmother's age at least, but yeah, no, it's nice.
Do you remember yours? I mean,
yeah, mine last week. Mine just turned 94. My nonna just turned 94. Easy to remember when they get up. I guess up there.
My nonna just had her birthday as well. I want to say she turned 74, either 74 or 75.
Damn,
so she's a little younger, but yeah,
a little bit,
little younger. But yeah, anyways, it's pretty cool. The fact that they're down there, and I think it's gonna be cool. Did you see? Apparently, they attended the premiere of the movie Boria. They were down at the premiere for that.
Oh, perfect timing for that too. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of it was planned, in that regard. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. Apparently, like past and present Leaf fans were in attendance. I think this is also an opportunity for maybe John Klingberg to get his game back. You know, I think this is a chance for him to go home, maybe eat a nice home cooked Swedish meal with his family. He put some Swedish meatballs in his belly and get back to playing the way that he did, you know, back when he was a native of Sweden. And, you know, he was an up and coming star in the Swedish Elite League and, you know, eventually made his way overseas and became, you know, a stud for the Dallas Stars. That guy's still in there. You know what I mean? Like he's still there. He's just battling some confidence right now. But I think potentially going back to Sweden, this could be really good for him, which in turn would be good for the Maple Leafs. I don't know if that's a take or if that's a wish, Dave, but I'm gonna say it with all my chest that I think he plays inspired this weekend, and I think there's a good chance for the Leafs to get the best out of Klingberg and maybe for him to turn his season around with this little global series here.
Yeah, I mean, he played better against Vancouver, but that's one game, right? We want to see a trend, right? We want to see him get on a little bit of a run here. And, I do think that this is like a nice get him away from maybe the spotlight a little bit here because let's face it, not as many reporters are going to be making the trip over to Sweden. So he doesn't have to deal with that. And it's a familiar setting for himself being back at home. So I do think that hopefully this is something that will kind of give him that bounce back. Also, the Leafs have a lot of time off, right?
Yeah.
They're going to have these 2 games and then they're off for a bit again, right? And we know that he's dealing with an injury.
Yep.
Right? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So he'll get some extra time to handle said injury.
Yeah, exactly. Which hopefully it does work out because, man, do they ever need this guy to not be a liability? That's for sure. Making $4 million. So the 2 games that they're going to be playing this weekend, just for those who maybe were out of the loop a little bit and haven't been, don't know exactly when these games are going to be. It's not going to be your typical Saturday night primetime game for the Maple Leafs. So they play Friday afternoon against the Detroit Red Wings at 2 p.m. That's 2 p.m. against Detroit. And then Sunday morning against Minnesota at 8 p.m. So that's a 2 p.m. start on Friday and an 8 a.m. start Sunday morning. It's also really weird that Ottawa is also one of the teams that are going over for this, one of the 4 teams going over in the Global Series, yet somehow Toronto and Ottawa don't play each other.
Yeah, I do find that pretty curious. Like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to really make of that. I don't know if it was because Toronto and Ottawa already played each other, but then I'm like, well, Minnesota, Toronto already played each other.
Yeah.
I mean, you get those 2 games out of the way, I guess, for the NHL's sake. But yeah, it is like you would think that you'd want the Battle of Ontario to have like a Swedish kick to it.
Would be nice,
Yeah.
maybe, but then again, I suppose they're thinking, you could sell more tickets, man. I don't know, but I did think that it's like that's kind of weird that you get 2 teams who are so rivals. You could kind of say that are both going over there. You'd think they want like a good rivalry game
Yeah.
against one another, as opposed to like Toronto, Minnesota. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. They're going to be playing Detroit and Mini. That's kind of the way the cookie crumbles, as who's the actor from that movie? Jim Carrey. Jim
Yes.
Carrey said yes in Bruce Almighty. Good movie, man. I haven't watched that movie in a long time, but I remember as a kid, I did enjoy that film. I will say that. I will say that, Dave. All right. Why don't we take a quick break? And then when we come back, there was a report today from John Shannon about the Leafs potentially being linked to star forward Patrick Kane. We'll dive into that report and sift through it and see if we can make some sense of it. So that'll be coming up on the other side. But first, Dave, how about a word from our show sponsor?
Yes, today's show is brought to you by Jace Medical. Whether you're on an extended travel, bracing for a major weather event, or limited by yet another supply shortage, you are covered, my friend. Thanks to our partners at Jace Medical. Life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medication can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics for Cialis, Viagra, Revadio prescriptions. Go online right now at jacemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. A verified customer had this to say about Jace. I'm thankful for the service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half to have it. I ordered most of my daily meds with the year supply. I also ordered an antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this for everyone. If you are someone you would love to get peace of mind by having a year supply of any daily med, go to jacemedical.com to see if it's offered for you. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase. That is jasemedical.com.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano and Dave Morassutti. We are hosts here on the Locked On Leafs show, and we are a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast. You can find us wherever you find your pods at, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher. You can find it on Podbean, Google Podcasts, and of course Spotify, and wherever you get your audio pods from. Also, you can find us up on YouTube as well and watch the video version of this podcast. And if you do, we'd really like it if you would consider leaving a like on the video if you enjoy it, and leave a comment down below as well. Let us know if you like the potential of the Leafs landing Patrick Kane, because that's the subject of the next little topic we've got lined up for you here to talk about on the show. Because John Shannon, who long time respected hockey man, knows a lot of people, and if he's reporting something, there's probably some meat to it, I would say. He reported today that the Maple Leafs have met with Patrick Kane. Now, he also notes that Kane's been training in Oakville, which is, right here, right outside within the GTA, and says that, he's beginning the process of meeting with teams, and he's hearing that he met with the Toronto Maple Leafs today. That is the latest report from John Shannon. So, real interesting. What are you searching for here?
Florida, Tampa, Carolina, Dallas also appear to be on the list, along with Buffalo, who just lost Tage Thompson for potentially a significant amount of time,
which I think would probably detract them from Kane. Like, I think Kane would be less inclined to go to Buffalo with the Tage Thompson injury. That would be my guess there. The way Tampa's played this season, like, I don't know if that still is a championship caliber team. I mean, I guess they're going to finally get their goalie back in the next, couple of weeks here, and then you can really judge what that team looks like. But Florida, Carolina, Dallas, like those three teams are still, solid squads that could definitely get a boost from adding a Patrick Kane. No New York, though, eh? No Rangers, apparently, according to John Shannon.
I think they've seen it done and are just like hands washed of that situation.
Yeah, potentially that could be the case where, he doesn't, Showtime doesn't want to go back to the Big Apple, possibly. But he could come to Toronto. And again, John Shannon, according to him, Patrick Kane was in Toronto, or speaking with Toronto today while training in Oakville.
I wonder who he met with. Like, aren't most of the Leafs brass in Sweden right now?
Shanny, maybe Shanny. Like, you think Shanny would have went to Sweden? I don't know. It's a good question. Who would he have met? I guess from the Maple Leafs. Maybe the GM didn't go over there yet.
That's what I was gonna say. Is maybe maybe the Jet is getting a little extra miles where they're doing the team, then they're gonna come back, get the rest of the guys. Who knows? But yeah. I do find it interesting because personally, I can think of who is leaking this information because I do know that their agent, like Patrick Kane's agent, was the one that was initially putting out, look, he's looking pretty good. I think we put that video up weeks ago where he was doing those drills and he was looking. Yeah, it didn't look like they were trying to pump his tires a little bit. He might have had a hip surgery, but it doesn't look like it, right? So I do think that this is going to help when you get the Leafs involved. Even if the Leafs, we're going to talk a little bit about this, but even if the Leafs potentially don't even want this, they're the one team that you're going to try to get other teams to be like, hey, look, we're talking to Toronto. Don't miss out on your opportunity to come and get Patrick Kane.
Right. Like, this could be a ploy where it's, in order to get other teams involved, it's like, you don't want Toronto to get him, block him by coming to get this guy. Because if they add him to that already talented, group, who knows what could happen? Yeah, like, this could be a ploy. But, like, let's get into it. Do you think that there is significant interest here when it comes to a potential, fit with Kane joining the Maple Leafs? Like, where does he fit? Where would he slot in, you think?
Like, if you're getting Patrick Kane, you're not putting him in a bottom six role. He's got to be in a top six to even entertain that idea. First off, to even have him decide to sign here, he's got to know that he's going to come in and get a chance to play in the top six, playing with Austin Matthews. Like, that's the sell if you're going to want to sell him on coming. The thing is, and we just talked about this, on the last show, things are looking pretty good right now in the top 6, right? Like you're going to potentially move all that just to bring in Patrick Kane, who, had a down year last year. I know he wasn't 100% healthy. I know that Chicago was a tire fire, but Patrick Kane has been on the downhill here. And it also it would be like where you need new tires for your car, but you decide, I got to go get a new paint job instead. No. You don't need a new paint job. You need tires. And when I mean tires, I mean help on the blue line. I understand that it's just money you're spending on Patrick Kane, but it's another contract you're bringing in. The Leafs already got like little to no cap space right now. So you got to figure that move out on top of that. So I just don't see how that fit really works right now.
Well, do you think that it would cost a lot to land Patrick Kane?
No.
Like, do you think he's looking for money or is he ring chasing? I mean, you might be able to make it work. Like if you get to move a contract out to make it happen. I mean, if you're Toronto, I think you do that. Like if it's going to cost you, let's say, Max Domi, for example, kind of got to do it, don't you? Like if he says, I want to come here, right? I want to be here in Toronto. I want, this is the team that I want to be with. I want to have an opportunity to win a championship with Austin Matthews, play with him, play with this group, yada, yada, yada. I mean, don't you kind of have to think about it?
The reason why I think about it on top of those reasons you said is he's got the one thing that this team will always go out and get. That's championship pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't a guy who rode the curtails of a championship, right? He was Showtime, like he's Showtime Patty Kane for a reason. He was the reason why the Blackhawks went on that dominant run, right, in the early 2010s. I know it's a little while ago, but he still has that pedigree to him, and that's something teams will pay attention to. That's why the Rangers went out and got him, right? They already had a Tarasenko. They're like, well, let's add Patty Kane and try to, really up our chances. So it's easier to do now because, yes, I don't think money is the main motivator here. I don't know how that will work I know that once you sign a contract later in the year, the cap situation's a little different, right?
Yeah.
It's prorated a little bit. I mean, Brandon Pridham would have to figure that part out. But I think if this was even something they were going to discuss in the offseason, they would have to know how to make that cap work. So I don't think I'm not a steady, like, no dice, like, don't even consider it. It's just you got to really think about how the fit works, how it works in your cap structure, and how it works with your team chemistry, which, I mean, at this point, the Leafs, I don't think that's a huge deal. They've already done so many moves and additions that I think it would work. I think the person that would benefit the most from it, from a morale standpoint, would be Austin Matthews, because we know how much he would probably love the chance to play with Patrick Kane.
Yeah. The thing is, though, like Patrick Kane's a right winger. Like, he's always played on the right side. Right?
Hey, Mitch, do you mind if we put you down onto Tavares' wing?
Oh, okay. What are you gonna do with Willie?
Put him on the left side.
Now you're moving. He's legitimately been the best player on your team, and he's like top 5 in scoring this year. And you're just gonna boot him to the left side for maybe it'll work, Patrick Kane.
Well, I'm trying to figure out
who you're looking to bring in and sign an extension to, and all of a sudden you're gonna mess with all that and move your whole lineup around for Patrick Kane. Like, this is where it doesn't make sense to me. I'm taking a stance. I'm actually team don't sign Kane. Like, I was just kind of throwing these questions out to you but my actual thing is I don't think it works. I don't see a scenario where that makes sense if he's going to play in the top 6. Maybe to play in the bottom 6, but again, if I don't know if he comes here for that reason.
No, that was kind of my, like, I can see why if you're looking at those other teams that were mentioned, the Hurricanes, the Panthers, the Stars, you can definitely see a player that Patrick Kane would play over in those lineups on the right side. Toronto, it's tougher. I just again, I can see why they are interested in the meeting, but I can also see why it doesn't work. I'm like, I'm never gonna say no to an opportunity like that, but I'm also like not gonna be like, yes, let's get this done tonight. Like, no, like this doesn't jive. They don't need, this is not the biggest move they need to be. They need to be figuring out a way to make cap
Zadorov happen.
Zadorov and Tanev. Let's get that pairing in here.
So let me ask you this: if you had the opportunity, right? If the Leafs had, one deal to make where they could bring in somebody, would you rather bring in Zadorov or Patrick Kane?
Oh, Zadorov. Like they need that blue line to be harder to play against. It is too easy to go up against that blue line right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like Mark Giordano is playing too much, right?
Yeah.
You get Zadorov that pushes him further down the lineup and even spells him some games. He can't be asked to play 82 games. He can't be asked to play close to 20 minutes a night.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you there too. Like I would prefer to go in a different direction. Like, and it does go back to your point where it's like you don't need to be spending all this money, this cap space, and whatever on Patrick Kane. Like, spend your focus on trying to make this blue line better. Offense has never, and for as long as this core four is the core four, will not be the problem here in Toronto. It's always been defense and goaltending and wherever it may be. You don't need to keep bolstering that offense at the expense of the blue line. So unless he's willing to come and take like league minimum, like $1 million, $1.5 million at most, where if you could make some other moves, there's still a chance where you could add Kane and add Zadorov and maybe make some additions at the deadline as well. I think it would take a lot of movement and it would take some heavy lifting, from this roster and moving some pieces out and maybe getting some retention on the Zadorov deal and whatever it may be. But, ultimately, I think that Kane would be a massive luxury add. I thought that last year. I still think that would be the case. And for me, it doesn't fit because, again, you're probably not going to move Marner off of Matthews' wing. You're probably not going to move Willie off of, the right side where he's been playing elite hockey, like superstar level hockey this season. So what do you do? You're going to put him on the third line with Max Domi and Nick Robertson? I mean, I don't know if that's attractive to Patrick Kane. Like, if it is, and he's willing to do that and play a bottom six role and just be like secondary offense and play on the power play and be a facilitator there and maybe get a couple of shifts up top when, they get some offensive situations and they need to throw guys like that out there. I don't know. It would be a luxury ad, in my opinion, but let's also be honest. If we found out tomorrow, we wake up that Patrick Kane is signed with the Leafs, like we'd be excited about that prospect. Don't get me wrong, but I still think that it would be a luxury ad for Toronto.
It would be right. Yeah.
All right, we'll take one more quick break, and then we'll come back. And there's another report about some rule changes potentially to 3-on-3 overtime, which I think is kind of interesting. So we'll come back. We'll talk about that idea and if we like it. And the PWHL kickoff training camp tomorrow. Well, I guess today by the time that most people are listening to this. The jerseys were unveiled. They had a media day. So we'll show you what Toronto's jersey looks like. And I got to tell you, Dave, I'm a little chapped by this whole situation. I'll tell you what I mean. I'll explain it more in just a moment. But before we get into all of that, let me tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and it's our good friends over at FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, overs, unders. You can even bet futures. You think Austin Matthews is going to lead the league in goals? Go ahead. Make that wager. Bet him to win the Richard. Again, you can do it on FanDuel. So visit the FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the Locked On Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. So an interesting report coming out today. So I didn't even know this was happening, to be honest. It was very quiet that this was happening, but I guess it does happen every November. There are GM meetings. Then there's also more important GM meetings in Boca a little bit later on.
The meeting before the meeting.
Yeah, this is the meeting before the meeting to set up what we got to talk about at the next meeting and put things into place. So that's what's taking place here. Just conversations of what maybe we should talk about at our next meeting. That's essentially what this is. And the biggest topic of conversation, apparently, that's coming out and a potential rule change that could be coming of all of this is the idea of them changing the 3-on-3 overtime rules. Dave, why don't you tell everybody what exactly this could entail?
Well, for the good folks who are on YouTube, I will throw up a tweet here from Frank Saravalli, who was talking with Colin Campbell, saying that. So the big one here is the NHL doesn't like when teams, and the Leafs have done this quite a bit, and a lot of teams have done this, where players get possession in overtime, but then they decide, you know what, we don't like how the play is looking, so we're going to circle back, regroup, and try again to see if we can get an opening here. So apparently they're not too thrilled about that. So potential solutions they're going to discuss if they feel like that's something that they want to change. Once you cross the red or blue line, you can't go back out again. So basically, you can't skate back out when you have possession of the puck. Or we're going to play some basketball and we're going to put in a shot clock, or lacrosse in this situation too. Discussions are ongoing and it's going to be tabled in March. So essentially, teams that have now figured out ways to, get rid of the mayhem of 3-on-3 by saying, we're going to try to play smart and play puck possession here. NHL's like, we don't really care for that. We want chaos. We want games to end in overtime.
Yeah, and that's what we want. And I was reading a piece, and they were speaking with some of the general managers, and this is what Kevin Adams had to say. But for sure, by the way, if this is taking place in Toronto, the GM meetings, definitely.
Brad Treliving is there.
Yeah, he's here in Toronto. So for sure, he met with Brad Treliving. And the rest of them are going to obviously meet. Maybe meet, I guess. I don't even know if they're going to go down. I would assume they would go down, meet them there in Sweden. Anyways, to get back to this conversation.
We figured out that part of that first, like a little. That's fine.
Yeah. So what I was reading was Kevin Adams was saying that, the bigger question is, does the data, including shot attempts, scoring chances, and possession changes, support keeping status quo, or should there be changes made? And Kevin Adams said, that's what we're looking at. Delay and keeping the puck versus what would possession changes do if you were forced to have to attack? And does that create more excitement? I think that's the conversation. It's more conversation based today, and it'll probably go deeper in March when you have more time at those meetings. We're here, it's only a couple of days, but it's something that they seem to be very interested in, diving into the data and figuring out if it would be best for the game. And I guess that's kind of what they'll be doing over the next couple of days and over the next, few months before they get to March, where, whoever's in favor of making the change will present their case. And then they'll, all deliberate and say, yes, we want to change the rule, or no, we think the rule is, or the game is played perfectly fine as is. So something to keep an eye on over the next little bit. But would you want this change? Like, would you be in favor of this if you were in those meetings?
You know what? I don't have too much of an issue, because it's not like where I can understand why they're having these discussions. I don't think it's as big of an issue right now. The biggest issue is the clock, right? Like 5 minutes in some cases is just like, I look back at that Calgary Leafs OT where you're having a heart attack, almost like a heart attack every 20 seconds in that overtime. And then it goes to a shootout, and you're just like, oh, like, why couldn't we have an extra 2 minutes of this or another few minutes? I know people are saying 10 minutes. It's already been discussed why 10 minutes is not on the table there. If they feel like they can figure out a way to keep the spirit of 3-on-3 alive while also bringing a rule like this, maybe. Like, I don't know about the shot clock. Like, that's going to be a little tougher to enforce, right? Because players are going to have to look up and find out where the shot clock is while they're skating on the ice. I think it'd be easier to do like all right, if you are
I mean, the shot clock it'll be right there behind the net, I would imagine. Like it'll be in plain sight. You'll know where it is. Not like you're gonna have to search in every building. It'll be in the same spot. I would imagine.
So whose view are you taking away for that shot clock as well?
Unfortunately, there'll be a couple of people in the stands who are probably gonna have to miss out on it.
They're paying a lot of money for that seat. That's
want to improve the game.
That's something they're gonna have to discuss because
obstructed views is what it is. Those tickets will be sold as obstructed views, and if you want to pay for them and sit in the lower bowl, well, that's what it's gonna be.
I do like that, but again, these are some of the like solutions, but they're not always perfect solutions. So that's why I want to see a proper, like, not just, hey, we're thinking this, we're thinking that. I want to see like why they think, doing this will have such a great benefit. They also should like also test something like this in the AHL or somewhere before they even consider it.
Yeah, that's typically what they do is they'll kind of have a test. I would assume next year they'll test it in the AHL. If they decide they want to get a closer look at it, test it in the minors in the American League. Then if it works, the following year they usually implement the rule into the NHL. So that is kind of something that they typically will do. I'm probably in favor of, not allowing the regroup or the circle back. Like, just keep everything attacking. You know what I mean? I think that would be pretty sweet. And it's something that I've heard before, and I've been in favor of that happening, and it looks like it's gaining some more momentum. So again, something to keep an eye on over the next couple of months. But again, they'll probably go more deeper into this in March at the next meetings in Boca Raton. Okay, really quickly, the PWHL will be kicking off their training camps this year. So the Professional Women's Hockey League, and they unveiled their jerseys today. And Dave, so Toronto, who's gonna, we'll talk about them periodically here, right? The sister Leafs, I guess, is what we'll refer to them as. These are the jerseys. If you're watching on YouTube, these are the jerseys that they have unveiled, and this is what they're going to look like. It's just a blue jersey with like red across the black, across the shoulders, and it just in white lettering says Toronto across, diagonally across the jersey, almost, like New York has those jerseys, those Rangers ones. The Canes kind of have ones like that as well. These are very basic, Dave. I kind of wanted to see a little bit like these look like beer league jerseys to me. This doesn't scream to me like iconic inaugural women's, like, just it seems like there wasn't a whole lot of planning that went into these, man. I don't know if you've gotten that same vibe, but I'm not a fan.
No, I'm not a fan either. Like, first off, it doesn't take much to design a jersey that just has your city name and colors. Like, that's too, like, it just screams to me that not a lot of thought was put into it. Now, I heard the argument is that they don't have like the name secured yet, so they didn't want to put out the merch, and then things happen with the names.
How do you not have this stuff secured yet? Like,
no, that's my issue too. Is
that you're
like
kicking off training camps, you don't have this stuff secured.
There's a lot of things that they don't have secured right now. I've heard like some teams don't even really have arenas set. I want to see women's hockey like thrive. I want to see it be a great success. Things like this, put it in the word, like, it adds negative value to what you're trying to do right now.
It looks
the easiest thing they could have done for a jersey design, if they wanted to wait, or they want to have something just simple for every team, have the PWHL logo and have the city name on top of it as part of the logo. Something like that. Something that shows, you know what, at least it's branding to our league. To me, I see this jersey. I don't think of a PWHL team when I see this jersey. Like, as you said, it's closer to a beer league. If anything, I've seen beer league jerseys that look a lot nicer than this.
This looks like Sunnyvale Trailer Park jersey. Like,
it's not a great look. I hope that they realize that they got to do better.
Yeah. I guess if there's some legal ramifications as to why, you know, this looks the way it is and why they're not quite as ready as we wanted them to be, it's not a good look. Like, ultimately, it's not a good look. And I don't think you can half-ass this stuff. Like, I think they needed to be a bit more crisp with everything, and it just seems like they're very much on the fly and on the go. It seems disorganized, and that just doesn't seem like it's a good idea, quite frankly. It's a little worrisome if you are a fan of women's hockey, like I am. Like, I grew up calling women's hockey back in university. Like, I'm a fan of the sport, right? Like, I remember '02 when the women won the gold for the first time. Like, I was a fan of that team and I watched them, and I've watched them in every Olympic since. And I watched the US Canada rivalry series and the world championships. Like, I just love hockey, and it's a good level. And it's unfortunate. It seemed like this was a really good idea, and it still very well could be, and it could turn out to be a tremendous success. But early on, it just seems a little half-assed, and like maybe it's being rushed, just rushed a little bit. And you know, it's not. It just, I don't know how to explain it, but it just feels as though like a little unprofessional. I don't know. I don't know, Dave.
So it's literally the Professional Women's Hockey League that doesn't have a professional women's hockey league look right now.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, hopefully, by the end of training camps and by the time they start the season, which is still to be determined, sometime in January, they're supposed to start the year yet. Again, don't have team names locked up, team nicknames locked up, don't have like real jerseys, basically. And many of them reportedly also don't have their dates locked in or anything like that, because they don't have an arena that they've been able to strike a deal with. So yeah, there's a lot that's still up in the air here, and hopefully it gets sorted out rather soon, because training camps begin right now, and a lot of questions still to be answered here. All right, buddy, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave on X, not Twitter, X, at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, leave a like if you enjoyed this. And if you're on YouTube, leave a comment down below. Kane to the Leafs, is that a good idea? Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section. We'll be back for another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.